Once upon a time in a small community in Jamaica, there lived a wicked woman named Mirabelle. Mirabelle had a daughter named Elizabeth whom she had with her first husband. Mirabelle's first husband died when Elizabeth was only 1 year old. Across town, there lived a man named John, who had recently experienced a heartbreaking loss. His beloved wife had tragically passed away during childbirth, leaving behind a beautiful baby girl. John, with tears in his eyes, cradled his precious daughter and bestowed upon her the name, Jasmine, in honor of the fragile yet enduring beauty that had come into his life. As Jasmine grew, John showered her with boundless love and affection. He would affectionately call her, Beauty, a reflection of her inner and outer radiance as she blossomed into a beautiful child. Despite having all the material comforts at their disposal, it was evident that Jasmine yearned for the nurturing love of a mother figure in her life. Jasmine spent most of her time with her nanny, as her father's demanding role as a businessman required him to travel extensively across the country. There were occasions when he would be away for weeks at a time, leaving Jasmine in the care of her devoted nanny. 8 years later, Mirabelle crossed paths with John while shopping in town. As she strolled through the bustling market, her keen eye for detail spotted a man whose attire and demeanor immediately signaled affluence. John's tailored suit and polished shoes, combined with an air of sophistication, left no doubt in Mirabelle's mind. Here was a man of means. Months after their courtship, Mirabelle and John celebrated their wedding day in grand style. The event was the talk of the town, with the elites from near and far gracing the occasion. Mirabelle radiated with excitement as she embarked on her new life with John, her heart brimming with anticipation and joy. John took Mirabelle and Elizabeth to live with him after their marriage. He introduced Jasmine to her new mother and sister. However, tension immediately filled the air. Elizabeth, who was now 8 years old, was very spoiled and resistant to sharing her mother or her new father with anyone else. In contrast, Jasmine was thrilled to meet her new mother and sister. She eagerly embraced them, excited about the new chapter in their lives. Mirabelle soon approached John with a request to relieve the nanny of her duties. She argued that Jasmine was growing older and wouldn't require a nanny's care anymore, now that she was present in their lives. But after a few weeks, signs of Mirabelle's wickedness started to emerge. She would leave all the house chores for Jasmine to complete while her own daughter enjoyed playing outside. Jasmine diligently completed all the household tasks, while Mirabelle's daughter avoided any responsibilities. However, instead of receiving gratitude, Jasmine's efforts were met with cruelty. Mirabelle denied Jasmine food and sometimes gave her only scraps from their meals. Despite facing such mistreatment, Jasmine continued to show kindness and love toward her wicked stepmother and stepsister. She remained patient and never complained, even though her situation was difficult and unfair. John's work kept him away from home often, which made him unaware of the mistreatment Jasmine endured. After returning from one of his business trips, John fell seriously ill and had to be rushed to the hospital. The doctor informed Mirabelle that a considerable sum of money was needed immediately for John's surgery, without which he wouldn't survive another week. Mirabelle's greed and wickedness surfaced again as she chose not to spend the money that John had worked hard for. She lied and procrastinated, creating excuses about not having the funds. Unfortunately, John passed away in the hospital. After his burial, Mirabelle's wickedness escalated further. She intensified her mistreatment of Jasmine. Mirabelle seized Jasmine's bedroom to enlarge her own daughter's room. Jasmine was relegated to a small quarters, typically used for boys. While Mirabelle and her daughter enjoyed luxurious meals and comfortable living, Jasmine endured hunger and hardships. Despite the harsh treatment, Jasmine's spirit remained unbroken. She continued to perform her duties and show kindness, even when facing such cruelty. The community recognized Jasmine's goodness, and she became well liked by everyone for her kindness and helpful nature. Jasmine matured into an even more beautiful young woman as the years passed. At the age of 16, she radiated more beauty than ever. One day, while fetching water at the river, she encountered an elderly woman struggling with her water bucket. Jasmine's act of kindness led her to the old lady's home, which turned out to be a large and beautiful house. Jasmine helped the old lady inside. Jasmine looked around at the old lady's beautiful home and couldn't help but smile. It had been such a long time since she had been in such a stunning and inviting space. The old lady offered Jasmine water and inquired about her life. Jasmine, with a heavy heart, shared the painful memory of how she had been forcibly expelled from her late father's home by her wicked stepmother, Mirabel. She recounted the harsh reality of being relegated to the small, inadequate boys' quarters, a stark contrast to the life she had once known. The old lady felt compassion for Jasmine and invited her to visit and help her with chores whenever she could. Grateful for the newfound friendship, Jasmine bid the old lady farewell and returned to her own life. However, her encounters with the old lady marked a turning point in her journey. As Jasmine continued to face mistreatment at home, her determination to escape the cruelty grew stronger. She decided to leave her abusive stepmother's house and sought refuge with the kind old lady. She enrolled Jasmine in a reputable school to pursue her education. With the old lady's support, Jasmine thrived academically. She studied hard and excelled, eventually achieving her dream of becoming a skilled surgeon. Jasmine finally had the love of a mother that she had longed for throughout her life. The old lady embraced Jasmine as her own grandchild, and their bond was filled with warmth and affection. In a gesture of deep love and trust, the old lady willed all her wealth and properties to Jasmine, knowing that she had no living relatives. The old lady's heart was content and filled with happiness, knowing that she had found a kindred spirit in Jasmine, and that her legacy would be carried forward by this remarkable young woman. Years later, at the age of 97, the old lady peacefully passed away. It was indeed a somber and reflective moment for Jasmine, who had come to love the old lady as her own grandmother. However, amidst the sadness, Jasmine found solace in the cherished memories they had created together and the enduring legacy of kindness and generosity that the old lady had left behind. One day, while Jasmine was working as a surgeon, an old woman entered the hospital, desperate and pleading for help. The woman explained that her daughter needed life-saving surgery, but they couldn't afford the cost. To Jasmine's surprise, the woman was her own stepmother, Mirabel. Despite the painful memories, Jasmine's heart was filled with empathy and forgiveness. Jasmine recognized Mirabel's plea for help as a chance to make amends. She stepped in and performed the surgery, saving Mirabel's daughter. Mirabel, overwhelmed by guilt and remorse, begged for forgiveness and explained her dire circumstances. Jasmine, embracing her own growth and the power of compassion, forgave her stepmother. Mirabel believed it was high time to make amends with Jasmine, especially considering that Jasmine had saved her own daughter's life despite all the cruelty she had endured. She thought inviting Jasmine for dinner to their small apartment was the right step. To her surprise, Jasmine wholeheartedly agreed to the invitation, demonstrating her forgiving nature. However, lurking behind Mirabel's apparent change of heart were devious plans. Her apology to Jasmine was insincere, merely a guise to lure Jasmine to her house with ulterior motives. Deep down, Mirabel seethed with jealousy over Jasmine's success, especially since her own daughter had become a school dropout, remaining idle at home. This jealousy would soon drive her to take drastic and harmful actions against the very person who had shown her kindness in the face of cruelty. In a tragic twist of fate, Mirabel had originally poisoned the food meant for Jasmine. However, driven by her own greed and jealousy, Mirabel's own daughter Elizabeth switched the plates, taking the larger portion meant for Jasmine. As she began to consume the poisoned food, suddenly, she started coughing uncontrollably. Before anyone could reach her, she slumped over, choking on the deadly meal. Mirabel's horrified scream filled the room as she realized her own daughter, Elizabeth, had inadvertently eaten the poisoned food. Mirabelle's actions caught up with her, and she was arrested and charged for her crimes. She admitted to hiding John's money and allowing him to die, all for the sake of greed. She was sentenced to life in prison, left to reflect on the repercussions of her actions. One day, while at work, Jasmine crossed paths with a fellow surgeon named Simon. As they spent more time together, their connection deepened, and they soon found themselves in a loving relationship. Their shared experiences and passions drew them closer, and before long, they were head over heels in love. Their love story blossomed, leading to a beautiful journey of marriage. Jasmine and Simon exchanged vows, pledging their love and commitment to one another. Their union brought them immeasurable joy, and together they embarked on a new chapter in their lives. In time, their love story expanded to include a family of their own. They were blessed with 3 wonderful children, a son named Carter, and twin girls named Ella and Emma. Their home echoed with the laughter and happiness of their growing family, and their hearts were full as they embraced the joys and challenges of parenthood. As Jasmine's own family flourished, she looked back on her past and remembered how she had triumphed over life's adversities with the guidance of the old woman. She cherished the memory of her father and the lessons she had learned from the old lady. These lessons became a legacy that she passed down to her children, emphasizing the values of kindness, sincerity, hard work, and the principle of never responding to evil with evil. In this way, they created a harmonious and fulfilling life together. With love and resilience as their guiding lights, they lived happily ever after. Years later, Jasmine and Simon continued to enjoy a blissful marriage, and their 3 children were all grown up. While happiness filled their home, envy and jealousy were festering. The chain of events that followed would change their lives forever. Carter, their son, had chosen to follow in the footsteps of his parents and become a skilled surgeon, dedicating his life to saving others. Ella, the older of the twins, had inherited her mother's kindness and warm-hearted nature. She radiated empathy and was known for her genuine acceptance of people from all walks of life. Ella had always been the one to lend a helping hand, to offer a kind word, and to embrace diversity. Her open-mindedness had earned her friends from all corners of the world, and her gentle spirit touched the hearts of those who knew her. Ella was a shining example of the values her parents had instilled in her. In contrast, Emma, the younger twin, had a disposition quite unlike her sisters. She was known for her harsh judgments, a tendency to look down on others, and a prideful demeanor. Emma had allowed her arrogance to overshadow her potential for goodness. She often chose to ignore those who needed help and ridiculed people who didn't meet her standards. Her sharp tongue and stubborn pride had distanced her from the kindness and acceptance that Ella radiated effortlessly. Despite their differences, Jasmine and Simon loved their daughters equally and hoped that time and life experiences would shape Emma into a better person, just as it had for them. They believed in the power of love and guidance to influence their children's characters. A turning point in Ella and Emma lives, both girls had excelled in high school and earned scholarships to a prestigious college in the United States, where they both pursued their dreams of studying law. The day came for Ella and Emma to depart for the United States to start their college journey. They bid their parents and brother Carter goodbye and headed off to embrace the challenges of studying in a foreign country. The twins were as close as ever, sharing everything in their lives, including their appearance, as they were identical twins. Within a short period of time, Ella and Emma made some friends at college. They got to know Susan, who was also on a scholarship program, Ethan, an international student from Europe, and Grace, an orphan working her way through college by working in the cafeteria. The 5 of them became inseparable, supporting each other through their college experiences. One day, as Ella and Emma were heading to the library with their friends, they encountered 3 mean girls, Cassandra, Zara, and Helen. These girls decided to target Ella, the older of the twins, by trying to trip her. Emma, quick to react, attempted to confront Cassandra, but Ella stopped her from retaliating. Cassandra and her friends walked away, amused by their cruel actions. Emma was furious with Ella for not fighting back, but Ella explained that not everything warranted a reaction and assured her that she was fine. They proceeded to the library after the incident. After a few hours of studying in the library, Emma grew hungry and asked Ella to accompany her to the cafeteria. They grabbed some food and were heading out when they bumped into Mark and his friend, William. Mark was known for his sharp dressing and was the object of affection for many girls on campus. Mark greeted Ella, and before she could respond, Emma pushed herself in front and responded instead. Ella decided to step aside, allowing her sister to interact with Mark. Meanwhile, William, Mark's friend, who often worked in the cafeteria, decided to strike up a conversation with Ella. As Ella and William chatted and shared some laughs, Emma finished her conversation with Mark and joined her sister to leave the cafeteria. Ella bid William goodbye, and they parted ways, promising to meet up again. Back in their dormitory, Ella faced Emma's displeasure as her sister questioned her for smiling and talking to William, whom she referred to as a dirty, smelly boy. Ella defended William, explaining that he was her friend and that his appearance was due to his work. She advised Emma not to judge people based on their looks. The next day, Emma took her hostility to another level. While Ella was studying in the library, Emma sought out William, slapped him, and told him to stay away from her sister. She poured her drink on him as well, humiliating him further. Ella rushed to the scene to confront her sister but arrived too late. Ella eventually confronted Emma back at their dormitory. She was unapologetic and told Ella to leave. Distressed by her sister's actions, Ella decided to change her room to avoid further conflict. William felt really bad after all the insults Emma rained on him. He decided to stay away from Ella because he didn't want conflict. He stopped picking Ella's calls and avoided her. Ella made several attempts to apologize to William for her sister's bad character, but he continued to avoid her. Susan took it upon herself to speak to William on Ella's behalf. She explained everything, and William agreed to meet up and speak to Ella. William accepted Ella's apology and shared some laughs. Months went by, and Ella and Emma's relationship grew even more strained. Emma distanced herself from Ella was one thing. She eventually stopped speaking to her twin sister. Ella continued to thrive academically and maintained her friendships with Susan, Ethan, and Grace. 2 years passed, and Emma's behavior deteriorated further. She failed most of her classes due to her cutting classes with her boyfriend, Mark, and her newfound friendship with the bullies Cassandra and her gang. She ignored warnings from her professors about her declining grades, as she was more focused on her relationship with Mark and her rich friends. Days later, William and Ella were taking a stroll around campus and accidentally saw Mark and Cassandra making out on the stairs. Ella didn't waste any time. She rushed to find Emma to let her know what she saw. But at the sight of William, Emma was infuriated and told her sister she was lying and that she didn't believe her. Ella advised her to focus on her studies and leave Mark because he didn't love her and that Cassandra and Mark were having a secret affair behind her back. However, Emma asked Ella to get out her room. William, Ella's friend, became her confidant. She expressed her sadness about how Emma has been treating everyone including William and wished her sisters would change her ways. William and Ella spent much time together, they fell in love with each other and decided to start a relationship, and their bond grew stronger. Meanwhile, Emma's jealousy and anger continued to fester, fueled by her twin sister's success and happiness. As Ella's engagement to William was announced, Emma couldn't bear her sister's happiness. She made it a point to visit William's workplace and mock them, revealing her bitter resentment. Ella stood up for William, telling her sister to stop. Ella's kindness and genuine love had not waned despite everything. 2 months later, Emma went to Mark's room uninvited and caught him and Cassandra making out. When she shouted at them, they didn't even try to hide it and laughed at her. Mark told her she was a fool and that he was relieved she found out because he was tired of hiding. That same day, she found out from the school administration that she was dropped from the college due to failing all her classes. Ella heard what happened and went to comfort her, but she was inconsolable. The day finally came when Emma had to return home. She wept because she had not only disappointed herself but also her family. The bad character she had adopted and her mean ways had finally caught up with her. She was kicked out of the program and had to return home with nothing to show. Ella saw her off at the airport. After Emma got back home, she isolated herself for a while until she figured out her next move. Her parents were disappointed but still encouraged her to learn from her mistakes and pick herself up to start over. Ella remained in college and kept studying, and her hard work paid off as she passed all her courses. Meanwhile in America, the day came for Ella to meet William's parents. She was given an address. However, when she arrived at the location, it seemed completely different from what she expected. Ella called William, confused, and he came out to greet her. He asked her to enter, promising to explain. Inside, Ella was introduced to William's parents, and she was taken aback when William began to reveal the truth. He confessed that he wasn't actually a struggling college student working at the cafeteria. In fact, he came from a wealthy family that owned a chain of pharmaceutical companies making millions each year. William was the sole heir to their empire, and he had chosen to keep his identity a secret during his college years. Ella was stunned by the revelation. She felt hurt that William hadn't shared this with her earlier, but she also understood his reasons for wanting to live a normal life and find genuine friends who liked him for himself, not his family's wealth. William's parents approved of Ella and warmly welcomed her into their family. Ella and William's love grew stronger, and they continued to work at the cafeteria as if nothing had changed. Ella suggested that William accompany her to Jamaica to meet her parents during their summer break, and he agreed. One summer break, Ella decided it was time for William to meet her parents in Jamaica, as they planned to get married after graduation. She was excited about introducing him to her family and showing him where she grew up. Susan, who was also traveling home, joined them on the journey. Ella's parents welcomed William warmly, giving their approval for their daughter's choice of partner. Ella, William, and Susan enjoyed their time in Jamaica, spending quality moments together. However, Emma remained distant and refused to greet William, consumed by her jealousy. During their visit, Emma remained distant, struggling to contain her envy and resentment. Ella was hopeful that her sister might change her ways, given the chance. Ella decided to tell her family how William had pretended to be a struggling college student who had to work to pay his tuition. Turned out, he was just tired of having fake people around him who pretended to care about him because of his family's status. Jasmine laughed and commended William for the decision he took to discern who was genuine. All this time, Emma was eavesdropping and heard everything. Her eyes popped wide open when she heard all that Ella said about William being from a reputable family that owned a chain of pharmaceutical companies making millions yearly, and William being the sole heir to their empire as an only child. Emma approached Ella and started apologizing for her past actions. She asked her sister to forgive her for all the bad things she had done to her over the years, right from childhood. Ella, being the kind and loving sister, accepted Emma's apology and embraced her. They both cried, letting go of the pain that had separated them for so long. Ella was happy to have her sister back, and they laughed and reminisced about their childhood. Emma suggested that they plan Ella's wedding together, as she wanted to be there for her in every way possible. The idea warmed Ella's heart, and they began to rebuild their relationship, focusing on love, forgiveness, and a brighter future as sisters. Ella suggested that since Emma was mending fences, she should have a conversation with William so they could settle things since he'd be her brother-in-law soon. Emma agreed. William had long since forgiven her, but he was very happy that she apologized to him. It marked a new beginning for their relationship as they all moved forward. Last time on Mirror of Resentment, My Twin Sister's Envy, Emma had successfully convinced Ella and William that she had turned a new leaf. However, behind her smiles and seemingly warm gestures lay a deep-seated envy and bitterness, ready to unfurl and wreak havoc on their lives. Although Emma's parents initially didn't believe her sudden change of character, she worked tirelessly to convince them over the next few weeks that she was remorseful and would not return to her old ways. Unbeknownst to them, Emma hadn't changed one bit. She was hiding her evil intentions behind her pretentious smiles and hugs. Little did her family know that she was always plotting to destroy her sister's marriage. Since she had messed her academic life up and had nothing going for her, she wanted to ruin her sister's happiness. The depth of her jealousy and resentment was far from over. Ella was thrilled to be spending quality time with her twin sister. She finally had the sister she always wanted in Emma. Emma had successfully pulled off convincing everyone that she had changed, and she felt it was time to start putting her evil plans into motion. On the day Ella was to get her measurements for her wedding dress, Emma offered to make her some juice to calm her nerves and added laxatives to it. When it was time to get the measurements done, Ella could not leave the house, so she asked Emma to go in her place for the measurements since both of them were the same size, which is what Emma was hoping for. Ella's parents had given her some medicine to help with her upset stomach, so she eventually made it for her measurements, which infuriated Emma. Her plans had failed. Emma refused to give up on destroying her twin sister Ella's happiness. She met up with a male friend of hers who was just as devious and crafty. She offered to pay him a huge amount of money if he would pretend to be Ella's boyfriend and show up to a date William and Ella would be at that night. He would then accuse Ella of cheating on him, planting the seed of doubt in William's head. He agreed, and Emma made the payment. William and Ella arrived at their date and were having a good time when a guy showed up and started accusing Ella of being his girlfriend. William asked Ella if she knew the guy, and she told him she didn't know him. Perhaps he was mistaken and confusing her for someone else, maybe even her twin sister. William believed her, and security escorted the pretender out. He called Emma to inform her that their plans had failed. Ella bid her sister farewell as it was time for her to return to the States for her graduation. Emma had time while her sister was away to plot an evil plan that Ella could never escape. Ella, her parents, William, Susan, returned to the States for graduation. Ella graduated at the top of her class, earning the title of valedictorian. William, Susan, Grace, and Nathan also graduated with honors. Jasmine and Simon couldn't be happier for their daughter's accomplishments. While Ella was back in the States, Emma had enough time to concoct an even more sinister plan to rid herself of her twin sister for good. The bitterness and envy that festered within her drove her to devise a scheme that she believed would not only destroy Ella but ensure Emma's unhindered claim to the life she so coveted. William and Ella spent some time in the States before returning back to the island for their wedding, along with William's parents. A week passed since graduation, and it was time to return to Jamaica, as that's where their wedding would be held. Since Ella had been fitted for her wedding gown and all preparations were made by hers and William's parents, she had some time to relax and enjoy her beautiful island with her husband-to-be and her twin, Emma. The wedding day was fast approaching, and Emma made several attempts to make William notice her. However, all her efforts failed, as William was always with Ella, deeply engrossed in their wedding preparations and spending quality time together. It was the morning of Ella and William's wedding, and everyone was still asleep except for Emma and Ella. Emma invited Ella for a walk to calm her nerves before the wedding and share some sisterly bonding. They shared some laughs together. Emma expressed to Ella that she'd love to resume her studies, even if she had to work her way through college since she had lost her scholarship. Ella told her she was proud of her and would support her in any way she could. Time passed, and they had been lost in conversation, not realizing how far they had walked. Emma suggested visiting their favorite childhood river for a swim before they returned home. Ella knew her sister had always loved that place. Though she initially hesitated, she eventually agreed to go along, trusting her twin. Once they arrived at the river, Emma went in for a swim and urged Ella to join her. Ella initially refused, knowing that she couldn't swim. However, Emma assured her that she would keep her safe, just like when they were children. Trusting her sister, Ella entered the water, but instead of protecting her, Emma pushed her into the deepest part of the river, knowing Ella couldn't swim. She quickly left the scene and returned to the house, pretending as though nothing had happened. Emma had finally used the love and trust her twin sister Ella had for her against her, luring her into her trap. Emma snuck back into the house without being noticed. She went into the bridal suite, knowing that no one would enter except for Susan. She made every effort to avoid her parents and William until she had successfully transformed herself into Ella. She didn't need to do much, as they were identical twins. Emma had finished changing her appearance to mimic Ella, even adding the beauty spot Ella had to her own face. She planned to impersonate her sister, steal her identity and life, and marry William in her place. She figured since she couldn't have her own happy ending, she was going to steal her twin sister's life, believing this would finally give her the happiness she desired. It was now a few hours before the wedding, and everyone was preparing for the ceremony. Emma's real identity remained hidden, and she was convinced she could pull off her impersonation. Emma was dressed in her sister's wedding gown, looking at herself in the mirror with no thought or remorse for her trusting twin sister, whom she had pushed into the river and left for dead. She continued as if nothing had happened. Suddenly, she heard a bang on the door. It was Susan, notifying her that it was time to come out as the wedding would start soon. Susan asked, "Where is Emma, the maid of honor?" Not knowing Emma was the one she was speaking with, pretending to be Ella. Emma responded, telling Susan that she hadn't seen her in a few hours. All this time, William never saw Ella because it was considered bad luck to see the bride on the day of the wedding before she walked down the aisle. Emma had crafted a letter, explaining to her family that she had left home because she couldn't bear her family's disappointment. She mentioned her intention to get her life together and return when she could. Emma urged them not to look for her, convinced that they'd never be able to locate her. She planned all this meticulously so that no one would search for her after she disappeared right before Ella's wedding. This way, she could get rid of Ella, take her place, and no one would notice or suspect anything, especially because Emma was known to leave for weeks, sometimes months at a time. Emma was fully dressed and ready to walk down the aisle, a beautiful veil covering her face. She was ecstatic to finally be marrying William. She didn't mind pretending to be her twin for the rest of her life. Emma was smiling from ear to ear as she covered her face with her veil, preparing to walk down the aisle. The wedding was about to begin when someone shouted, "Stop!" All eyes turned to see Ella standing at the entrance. Everyone was bewildered because Ella was dressed as the bride, ready to marry William. Ella narrated the entire story to everyone, explaining how Emma had deceived and tricked her into following her to the river, all along with the intention to drown her. After pushing her into the deepest part of the water, Emma abandoned her there to die. Luckily, a fisherman was nearby and saw her struggling, and came to her rescue. Emma, in her panic, tried to flee the scene but was soon apprehended by some of the wedding guests, and the police were called. While being detained, Emma was confronted by Ella as to why she did all this to her, and why she went to this extent to harm her just to take over her life. Emma confessed to Ella everything she had been doing to break up her relationship since she started planning her wedding. Emma had always been jealous of her twin and her accomplishments. Everyone loved Ella while avoiding Emma due to her bad character. Her parents were always proud of Ella because she was respectful and obedient. Though their parents loved both twins equally, they even pampered Emma more than Ella, thinking she'd change. However, Emma was never satisfied. Jasmine was overcome with emotion, thinking of her own past with her evil stepmother Mirabelle, and how her wickedness eventually led her to prison. She pondered why Emma had allowed envy to consume her and harm her own twin sis. She wept for her daughter as the cops took her away. Emma was in tears and begged Ella for forgiveness before she was taken away by the police. She expressed that she was sorry for everything she had done, but Ella knew that her sister's actions had caused significant damage and she was in big trouble. William was still in shock and couldn't believe Emma was capable of such evil. He suggested they postpone the wedding for another day so everyone could recover from everything Emma had done. He was just happy his beloved Ella was saved, and they thanked the fishermen profusely for rescuing Ella from the river and preventing a tragedy. Ella decided she was going to go ahead with her wedding. She was done allowing Emma to ruin every good thing in her life. She was not going to let her sister stop her from walking down the aisle and becoming William's wife. Emma's actions had only strengthened Ella's determination to move forward and embrace her happiness. Though the day started off in turmoil and confusion, it ended in smiles. The wedding ceremony became the talk of the town, and William and Ella were finally united and married. Despite the challenges and the malevolent actions of Emma, love triumphed, and they celebrated the beginning of their new life together. Emma had her day in court. Despite her pleas, she was sentenced to 7 years in prison for her attempt to take her sister's life. Ella had testified on her behalf, showing compassion even after everything Emma had done. Life moved forward for Ella and William. They returned to the United States and began their careers as attorneys, eventually opening their own law practice. Their success and love for each other continued to grow. While Emma served her time in prison, Ella visited her occasionally to check on her well-being. Emma expressed her sincere remorse and pleaded for forgiveness. Ella forgave her sister but reminded her that there were consequences for her actions. Has Emma truly repented from her past evil ways, or is she just waiting for the next opportunity to continue her wickedness? Last time on My Twin Sister's Envy, Deadly Intentions, Emma's malevolent actions had caught up with her, leading to a 7-year prison sentence for attempting to eliminate her twin sister, Ella. Now, after serving her time, Emma faced the harsh reality of re-entering society. It's been 7 long years, but Emma was finally released from prison. The weight of her past misdeeds pressed heavily on her conscience, haunting her every waking moment. She found herself standing at the threshold of a new life, but the path seemed steep and uncertain. With no permanent place to live and no job prospects in sight, she clung to the remnants of her savings. With a sigh of relief, Emma looked around at the lush greenery and took a deep breath as she shed tears of uncertainty, not knowing her next move. After a moment of collecting her thoughts, she began searching for a place to spend the night. She checked around and found a small guest house to stay for the night. The weary walls and creaky floors didn't matter. It was a temporary roof over her head, a sanctuary from the challenges that lay ahead. As Emma settled into the humble room, she knew she had to gather her strength and resilience for the new chapter of life that awaited her at dawn. The next day, her quest for an apartment began. Facing several rejections, Emma persevered, determined to find a new place to call home. Each no only fueled her determination, hardening her resolve to overcome her past and rebuild her life. She walked through countless neighborhoods, visited numerous leasing offices, and endured many skeptical glances. But with each step, she grew stronger, refusing to be defined by her history. Emma finally managed to secure a modest apartment with the meager funds she had stashed away before her world collapsed. It was a small space, but it was hers, a sanctuary of sorts amidst the chaos of her life. Days turned into weeks, and she searched tirelessly for employment, yet the doors remained resolutely closed. The burden of her criminal history seemed insurmountable, staining every job application she submitted. Too ashamed to ask her family for assistance, she persisted in her solitude. Emma chose to battle her demons on her own, even if it meant enduring the harsh realities of life. Her parents were aware of her release, but her stubbornness kept her distant from them, and they could not reach her. Everyone had moved on in her absence. Her twin sister Ella had built a life separate from the shadows of the past. Emma often found herself lost in thoughts, pondering the road not taken, and how she had wronged the person who had once loved her unconditionally, her twin sister, Ella. Emma's heart weighed heavy with the burden of guilt and remorse. The first challenge she faced upon her release was finding a job to sustain herself. However, her criminal record became a haunting barrier. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, yet she remained jobless. One morning, as the sun painted the sky with hues of orange and pink, Emma woke up in her small, dimly lit apartment. She glanced at the calendar. She had just 1 month to come up with her rent. Fear and desperation settled in. She needed to make a change, to take a step toward redemption. Torn between shame and survival, Emma decided to reach out to an old friend from her troubled past, someone she had once committed crimes with. She was aware of his illegal activities and hoped he could assist her in finding work. With a glimmer of hope, she approached his doorstep. "Emma," he said, his voice tinged with disappointment. "I can't help you. Not after what you did to Ella." Emma recoiled, understanding the gravity of her actions. She had pushed away even those who were part of her past transgressions. She left his place feeling defeated, tears welling in her eyes. Weeks stretched into endless days, and Emma found herself adrift in the unforgiving streets, without a home or a job. She stood at her lowest point, questioning if there was any flicker of hope left for her. Weeks turned into a blur for Emma as she wandered through the city, the weight of her actions heavy on her shoulders. One afternoon, while sitting on a park bench, a kind old lady approached her. Her name was Mrs. Thompson, a warm-hearted woman who had seen life's trials and tribulations. "What are you looking for, my dear?" Mrs. Thompson asked, her eyes filled with compassion. Emma hesitated but then poured out her story. Mrs. Thompson listened attentively, her heart going out to this young woman who seemed lost and broken. "There's a cleaning job available at my office," Mrs. Thompson offered, giving her a glimmer of hope. "I'll talk to my manager and see if they can overlook your past and give you a chance." Filled with gratitude, Emma accepted the opportunity, promising herself that this time she would make it right. However, the days that followed were agonizing, waiting for the background check results. Emma hoped that her redemption could start with this job. The day arrived when Emma was to know if she had secured the cleaning job. Trembling with anxiety, she walked into Mrs. Thompson's office, her heart racing. "The background check wasn't ideal," Mrs. Thompson said. "But I've known you for a brief moment, and I believe in giving people a chance to change." Finally, after countless rejections, Emma secured a job as an office cleaner. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Each day, she tackled her responsibilities with determination, saving whatever little she could from her modest earnings. Slowly but steadily, she began to amass the funds she needed to secure a new apartment. A wave of relief washed over Emma. This was her chance at redemption. She vowed to prove herself and worked tirelessly, not only in her cleaning job but also in her personal life. Despite her struggles, Emma found solace and purpose in being a mentor at a local community outreach center for youth. She had seen the darker side of life, and she was determined to guide young souls away from that path. In the evenings after work, when most would rest, Emma dedicated her time to these young minds. She shared her story, hoping to illuminate the consequences of a misguided path. She encouraged them to believe in themselves and make better choices. Unbeknownst to Ella, Emma's trials and tribulations remained hidden from her view as Ella carried on with her life, optimistic that her sister would eventually find her path. Then, one fateful day, she came across a news article highlighting an outreach center profoundly affecting troubled youth. A woman named Emma was garnering attention for her remarkable contributions as a mentor to troubled kids. Ella's heart leapt with hope. Could this truly be her twin sister? Eager to find out, she reached out to her parents, who confirmed it was indeed Emma. Overwhelmed with emotions, Ella decided to visit Emma and offer her support, hoping this would mark the beginning of a healing journey for both of them. Ella, feeling the tug of family and nostalgia, decided to take a trip to Jamaica to see her parents and check in on her beloved twin sister, Emma. It had been a while since she had seen Emma, and with each passing day. One day, amidst the bustling market, Ella's keen eye caught a pitiful sight. Emma, once familiar but now a mere shadow of herself, sat on the sidewalk, lost in her own somber thoughts. Ella's heart wrenched at the sight of her sister in such anguish, barely recognizable. She mustered the courage to approach Emma, her own eyes welling up with tears. "Emma," she called out, her voice cracking. "What happened to you?" Tears streamed down Emma's face as she ran away, unable to face her sister. In her desperate escape, she was hit by a car and rushed to the hospital. Ella rushed to Emma's side, the accident shattering the remaining fragments of animosity between them. Emma woke up to a room filled with the people she had wronged, her family. "I'm so sorry," Emma sobbed, her voice choked with remorse. "I wish I could undo everything." Ella hugged her tightly, forgiving her and offering her a chance at redemption. From that day forth, Emma worked diligently to rebuild her life, driven by a newfound purpose. With the unwavering support of her family, Emma accomplished one of her lifelong dreams of owning her restaurant and initiating her mentoring program. She channeled her tumultuous past into guiding troubled youth, steering them away from the missteps she had once taken. In the midst of her journey, she crossed paths with Philip, a kindred mentor, and a beautiful love story unfolded. As months passed, their bond deepened, and they made the joyful decision to unite in marriage. Emma's family rejoiced in her newfound happiness, celebrating the love that had graced her life. On her wedding day, Emma walked down the aisle, surrounded by love and redemption. Ella stood by her side, her eyes shimmering with pride and happiness for her twin sister. Through the years, Emma's outreach center expanded, impacting countless young lives. She had transformed from a person driven by envy to one guided by compassion and love. And as she held Philip's hand, she knew she was on the right path. Back in the States, Ella and William's love blossomed into a new chapter of their lives as they became parents to a beautiful baby girl named Mia. She was a bundle of joy, bringing warmth and laughter to their home. Emma, having turned her life around, was overjoyed for her sister's newfound happiness. Ella, too, had forgiven her, allowing Emma to be a part of Mia's life. Emma cherished the moments she spent with her baby niece. She would visit Ella often, helping with Mia and sharing stories of their childhood. Seeing Mia grow up was a reminder of the innocence she once lost, and it fueled her determination to make the world a better place, especially for the young ones. Ella and William's love and dedication as parents were evident in every tender embrace, every loving kiss they bestowed upon Mia. They were setting an example, showing Emma the kind of parent she aspired to be if she were to have children of her own someday. Meanwhile in Jamaica, Emma found solace and love in her brother Carter's home. Her nieces and nephews adored their Aunt Emma. They would often share laughter, create memories, and talk about their dreams and aspirations. Jasmine and Simon, beaming with pride, watched as their family flourished. The life lessons they had imparted to their children had come to fruition. Emma had emerged from the shadows of envy and jealousy, Carter had become a successful surgeon, and Ella and William were raising Mia with love and care. As Emma continued her life of redemption, she and Philip welcomed the joy of parenthood into their lives. With hearts brimming with love and anticipation, they celebrated the arrival of a beautiful baby boy, whom they named Bryson. He brought a newfound sense of purpose and happiness to their lives, completing the family they had built together with love, resilience, and the promise of a bright future. As the family gathered for birthdays, holidays, and everyday moments, they realized the true essence of family: love, forgiveness, and redemption. Emma's transformation was a testament to the power of love and the ability to overcome the darkest of pasts. And so, their lives continued, intertwined with love, forgiveness, and the promise of a brighter future. This is the end of this story. Did you enjoy this story? If so, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and hit the post notifications bell so you'll be notified each time I upload. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.